Have you ever stood in a room where the loudest person wasn't the one everyone noticed, but the quietest? Not the one cracking jokes, boasting about achievements, or demanding attention, but someone who barely spoke, yet somehow made everyone uneasy. Their presence was heavy, palpable, a strange mix of calm and menace, and though no words escaped their lips, they commanded the space like an emperor watching over a court of jesters. What was it about them? Why did people instinctively adjust their posture, lower their voices, or glance nervously in their direction? It wasn't charm. It wasn't power in the conventional sense. It was something darker, a presence built not on desperate approval, but on ruthless inner certainty. Think about it. In your daily life, whether it's in the office, a family gathering, or scrolling through social media, confidence is almost always sold to us as something loud. Smiling faces, bold declarations, and motivational cliches plastered on. Feeds that scream, "Believe in yourself." But there's a reason those people rarely hold real power. There's a reason the world isn't ruled by the loudest voice, but by the quietest certainty. Real confidence, the kind that changes rooms and reshapes outcomes, doesn't come from surface-level affirmations or performative self-love. It emerges from a place few are willing to touch, a place Machiavelli once hinted at centuries ago when he wrote, "It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both." Not because fear is noble, not because love is weak, but because the one who can control their need for approval controls everything. In this video, we're going to uncover a truth about confidence that most of society is too afraid to admit. A trait so quietly powerful, it terrifies people without them even realizing why. It isn't charm, it isn't kindness, it isn't even raw intelligence. It's detachment, the ability to detach from other people's opinions, praise, or rejection. To live untouched by the tides of external validation. To walk into a room without needing to be liked, and therefore to possess a kind of confidence that no one can take from you. And while modern culture praises vulnerability and openness, Machiavelli knew what few dared to confront, that human nature is driven by self-interest, that alliances are fleeting, that those who base their worth on the affections of others will be forever enslaved by them. Niccolò Machiavelli wasn't a philosopher in the traditional sense. He was a political advisor, a keen observer of power, and a man exiled for speaking uncomfortable truths. His infamous work, The Prince, was less a guide to virtue and more a manual for survival in a world of wolves. In it, he detailed the brutal mechanics of leadership and influence, but hidden beneath the ruthless pragmatism was a recurring theme: the individual's ability to detach from personal emotion in pursuit of a higher aim. Machiavelli believed that the most dangerous man in any room is not the one who shouts the loudest, but the one who is willing to stand alone, the one unafraid of scorn, immune to adoration, and untouched by the ever-shifting winds of popularity. And in today's world, a culture addicted to likes, follows, and fleeting validation, this lesson is more crucial than ever. Because real confidence isn't built in public approval, it's forged in solitude, in silence, in the cold clarity of knowing you don't need to be liked to move forward. This isn't a motivational speech. It's a wake-up call. We're going to dive deep into the psychology of detachment, explore how modern society trains us to seek validation, and why breaking that addiction is the first step toward true, unshakable confidence. We'll examine Machiavelli's forgotten lessons, supported by modern psychological studies on social approval, dominance, and inner certainty. And by the end of this video, you'll see why the people you secretly fear or admire most aren't those who try hardest to be loved, but those who couldn't care less. So, if you've ever wondered why certain people effortlessly command respect without begging for it, why some remain calm as the world tries to provoke them, and why others, despite their desperate attempts at likability, always seem invisible. Stay with me, because what you're about to learn might just change the way you see yourself and the way you move through the world. At the heart of Machiavelli's philosophy lies a simple, uncomfortable truth. People are not inherently good. They are self-interested, opportunistic, and driven by personal gain. And while society endlessly preaches kindness, authenticity, and empathy, those who truly hold power are not necessarily those who embody these virtues, but those who understand how to wield them strategically. To Machiavelli, the foundation of unshakable confidence is not found in blind optimism or naive goodness. It is born from detachment, the ruthless ability to separate one's sense of identity from the opinions and emotions of others. This detachment does not mean cruelty, nor does it imply apathy. It means refusing to let the fluctuating judgments of others define you. It means knowing that admiration is temporary, alliances are conditional, and love is often transactional. Only by mastering this mental discipline can a person move through life with true confidence, unbothered by approval and undeterred by opposition. Let's break this down. Machiavelli wrote, "Men ought either to be well treated or crushed, because they can avenge themselves of lighter injuries, of more serious ones they cannot." What he was describing wasn't a rule for tyrants, but a reflection of human nature's binary response to power. People will either respect those who command without fear or attempt to exploit those who seek constant approval. This core idea can be divided into three essential psychological traits: detachment from approval, selective vulnerability, strategic emotional control. Let's unpack each. In psychological terms, this can be related to external locus of evaluation versus internal locus of control. Those with an external locus rely on others for their sense of worth. Their mood rises and falls with every compliment or criticism. But those with an internal locus move through life guided by their own standards. They know who they are. They set their own metrics of success. They can listen to feedback without being defined by it. Machiavelli's detachment was not indifference, it was immunity. The capacity to recognize praise for what it is, fleeting, conditional, and often manipulative. And in today's hyper-connected digital culture, this lesson is critical. Social media algorithms are engineered to hook us through validation loops. Every like, comment, or share triggers a dopamine response, reinforcing the addiction to external approval. Studies by psychologist John Twenger have shown alarming increases in anxiety, depression, and insecurity among young people, correlating directly with social media use. The more one seeks validation, the more fragile one's confidence becomes. Detachment is the antidote. When you no longer seek permission to exist, you become ungovernable. Modern culture romanticizes vulnerability, and while honesty is valuable, Machiavelli understood a crucial distinction. Not everyone deserves access to your weaknesses. In The Prince, he advises rulers to be both fox and lion. The fox for cunning, to recognize traps, and the lion for strength, to frighten off wolves. This translates to real life. Those who indiscriminately share their fears and struggles risk arming others against them. Selective vulnerability means choosing wisely who you allow into your inner world. It means showing strength in public and revealing your wounds only to those who have proven loyalty. Psychologists call this emotional intelligence, the ability to read a room, control disclosures, and manage emotional expressions based on context. Research by Daniel Goleman found that individuals with high emotional intelligence tend to outperform those with high IQ in leadership, negotiation, and influence. Why? Because they know when to speak, when to stay silent, and when to weaponize their words. Machiavelli would argue that while vulnerability has its place, it must always be strategic, never reckless. At its core, confidence is not the absence of fear, but the control of fear. Machiavelli observed that rulers who reacted emotionally were easily manipulated. Those who maintained composure, even in crisis, appeared invincible. Modern neuroscience confirms this. Studies on emotional regulation reveal that individuals capable of delayed emotional response exhibit stronger decision-making skills and lower susceptibility to manipulation. In one famous study by Stanford psychologist Walter Mischel, the marshmallow test, children who could delay gratification went on to experience better life outcomes in nearly every category, from academic performance to social skills and income. Emotional control isn't about suppressing feeling. It's about channeling it. A Machiavellian mind remains calm when insulted, focused when threatened, and decisive when others hesitate. This ability radiates a kind of silent authority that draws others in and keeps would-be manipulators at bay. Consider the difference between two leaders, Alexander the Great, who famously remained composed even after his closest friend was killed in battle, using his grief not for rash revenge, but to strategically eliminate dissent. And on the other hand, Caligula, the Roman emperor known for emotional outbursts and paranoia, whose unrestrained whims led to his assassination by his own guards. The world remembers Alexander as a god-king. It remembers Caligula as a madman. The difference: detachment, emotional discipline, control. In modern terms, think of Elon Musk versus countless celebrities caught in Twitter meltdowns. Whether you admire him or not, Musk's ability to endure criticism, market fluctuations, and public scandal without visible distress cements his status as a dominant figure. It's not his wealth alone that commands influence. It's his refusal to be emotionally predictable. Now let's go deeper. The ancient Stoics, a philosophy Machiavelli likely absorbed indirectly, preached apatheia, a state of being undisturbed by external circumstances. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This mirrors Machiavelli's teachings. Both believed that the one who governs himself governs the world. The detachment we speak of is not nihilism, it's not apathy, it's self-mastery. In a society obsessed with being liked, those who no longer crave it become dangerous. Not because they seek harm, but because they cannot be controlled. Nietzsche later echoed this idea. The individual has always had to struggle, to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe. And those who succeed, who develop detachment, selective vulnerability, and emotional control, become forces of nature. Their confidence is not a mood, it's a state of being. Now here's where this gets unsettling. The more you study human nature, stripped of its polite illusions, the more you realize something deeply disturbing. People aren't looking for fairness, they aren't looking for goodness, they're looking for certainty. They gravitate not to the kindest person in the room, but to the one whose energy feels unshakable, the one who doesn't flinch, the one who radiates a quiet but immovable sense of authority. This is the uncomfortable truth Machiavelli knew, and it still shapes our world today. People will betray their own interest to follow someone they perceive as certain. They'll silence their doubts, ignore their discomfort, and rally behind confidence, even if it's cruel, even if it's deceptive, because confidence offers them the one thing they crave more than justice: the illusion of safety. History has proved this over and over. Now let's challenge a popular assumption you've probably believed your entire life. We're told that if you're kind, humble, vulnerable, if you speak openly about your flaws, people will love you for your honesty. They'll embrace you for your humanity. And sometimes, yes, in the right company they will, but often they won't. In reality, the more you expose your weaknesses indiscriminately, the more people will subconsciously lose respect for you, not because they're cruel, but because human nature instinctively assesses hierarchy through displays of emotional control. We're social animals wired by evolution to follow those who appear strongest in crisis, not those who appear most emotionally. Expressive psychologist Jordan Peterson discusses this in his work on social hierarchies and dominant structures. He explains that groups unconsciously organize themselves around individuals who demonstrate high competence and emotional restraint, especially in moments of stress. When you bleed emotionally in front of people who haven't earned your trust, you reduce your perceived status in their eyes, not because your emotions are invalid, but because public displays of vulnerability signal instability in high-stakes social dynamics. It's an ancient survival instinct. A 2018 study published in Nature Human Behavior revealed that individuals who display overconfidence, even when their abilities don't merit it, are disproportionately rewarded with leadership roles and social influence. This isn't because overconfidence makes them more competent, it's because it makes others feel safer, even if irrationally so. The illusion of certainty is a powerful currency in human interaction, and those who master it, Machiavelli argued, can bend the loyalties and perceptions of others to their will. This explains why mediocrity in positions of power is so common. People rarely rise to leadership by being the most qualified, but by being the most certain. So here's the question you need to ask yourself. How often have you given away your power without realizing it? How many times have you over-explained yourself, apologized for things you didn't need to, or sought permission for decisions that were yours to make? You might believe you're being kind. You might believe you're being humble. But in many cases, you're signaling weakness, and the people around you, consciously or not, are calibrating their perception of you based on those moments. You think you're making yourself more likable, but you might be making yourself invisible, and worse, replaceable. Machiavelli didn't preach cruelty for its own sake. He preached the wisdom of strategic invisibility, of knowing when to reveal your emotions and when to project indifference. It's not about lying, it's about control. Another brutal truth Machiavelli articulated is this: love is conditional. Whether in politics, business, or personal life, affection and loyalty are often based less on your virtues and more on your perceived usefulness. In The Prince, he wrote, "Men are ungrateful, fickle, deceptive, cowardly, and greedy for gain. And while you are useful to them, they are yours entirely. But when you no longer serve their interests, they will turn on you." It sounds cynical, but is it untrue? Think about friendships that faded when you stopped offering emotional support. Think about relationships that cooled when your resources or status changed. Think about bosses or colleagues who valued you when you were productive, then discarded you without hesitation when you struggled. This is not to suggest all human bonds are manipulative. Genuine loyalty exists, but it is rare, and it is earned, not assumed. Recognizing this is not about bitterness, it's about clarity. When you see human nature for what it is, you stop being shocked by betrayal. You stop basing your confidence on how others feel about you today, because you know those feelings are temporary. You stop needing their affection and start commanding their respect. Unsettling insight number 2. Society rewards certainty over intelligence. Another disturbing realization: power doesn't always reward the smartest, it rewards the most certain. History is littered with brilliant thinkers, artists, and visionaries who died poor, ignored, or ridiculed, while less talented, louder individuals dominated their worlds. Why? Because society doesn't instinctively follow intelligence, it follows perceived authority. Machiavelli knew this. He advised leaders to project unwavering certainty, even when they doubted themselves internally, because appearance shapes reality, and modern psychology backs this up. A 2010 study from organizational behavior and human decision processes found that people with higher levels of expressed confidence were rated as more competent by their peers, regardless of their actual ability. This is what Machiavelli meant when he argued that the appearance of virtue is often more valuable than virtue itself. In a room full of people, the one who appears most unbothered, most self-assured, even if bluffing, naturally assumes dominance over those more skilled, but visibly uncertain. This is the dark law of power. And the sooner you accept it, the more agency you reclaim over your own destiny. Perhaps the greatest weapon Machiavelli taught was not deception nor violence, but emotional detachment, the ability to remain unshaken in the face of insult, disappointment, or betrayal. This isn't numbness, it's self-possession. When you control your emotional reactivity, you control perception, and perception shapes reality. People instinctively defer to those whose moods they cannot predict, whose approval they cannot easily win. Why? Because we crave certainty. And what we can't control, we respect or fear. And in this silent space, between admiration and intimidation, lies true power. It's not the loudest person in the room who holds the most influence. It's the one who doesn't flinch. And now here it is. The moment where the ground shifts beneath your feet, because everything we've explored so far, the power of certainty, the illusion of affection, the ruthless mechanics of social hierarchy, leads to one cold, undeniable revelation. Real confidence doesn't come from belief in yourself. It comes from your willingness to be alone. Let that sink in. Not from your achievements, not from applause, not from validation, approval, or the warmth of being accepted. It comes from your readiness to walk away, to stand without flinching, in solitude, when no one claps, no one listens, no one follows. And here's why this is so powerful. The person who needs nothing from the world holds power over it. Because they cannot be manipulated. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. He warned rulers and common men alike that the one trait most threatening to the world wasn't ruthlessness, nor cunning, nor charm. It was detachment, the ability to withhold your emotions, to say no without explanation, to sever ties when they cease to serve your higher aim, to stop explaining yourself, to stop apologizing for your ambition, your silence, your standards. The man who has mastered the art of being alone, not physically but psychologically, is untouchable. Because where others beg for reassurance, he watches in silence. Where others chase affection, he chooses relevance, and relevance is dictated not by likability, but by necessity. When you become the person whose approval is rare, whose presence is unpredictable, whose indifference is real, you stop being a participant in other people's games. You become the one who sets the rules. That's the core of Machiavellian power. Not deception, not cruelty, not dominance through force, but dominance through emotional invulnerability. You remain unmoved while others scramble for position. You speak less while others reveal too much. You stay distant while others cling. And in doing so, you become the gravity they can't escape. This is the dark trait no one wants to talk about because it terrifies people. Not because it's evil, but because it's free. And those who are free threaten the order that thrives on dependency. To detach is to threaten a world built on control. And when you realize that, truly realize it, you begin to see why. History belongs not to the kindest or the loudest, but to the ones who walked alone and never flinched. So where does that leave you? Now that you've seen behind the curtain, glimpsed the mechanics of confidence, certainty, and detachment, what do you do with this knowledge? Because here's the uncomfortable part. Most people, even after understanding this, will do nothing. they'll go back to apologizing for their existence, back to chasing people who barely notice them, back to giving away their time, energy, and dignity for the hollow warmth of temporary validation. But you, if you've made it this far, you're not most people. And if you've felt that flicker of cold clarity in your gut while listening to these words, you already know it's time for a shift. It's time to stop chasing approval, time to stop over-explaining yourself, time to stop volunteering for emotional labor that leaves you drained and unseen, because real confidence isn't built in the spotlight. It's built in silence, in moments where no one's watching, when you choose not to react, when you choose not to beg, when you choose to walk away from what doesn't serve you and let the world feel your absence. That's the origin of quiet power, the kind that doesn't need announcement, the kind that can't be stolen. Let's break this down into actions you can take right now to embody this principle. Master emotional detachment, not apathy, not coldness, but the ability to feel fully and choose when, where, and with whom you reveal it. Stop giving your emotions away freely. Let people wonder what you're thinking. Let them earn access to your inner world. Stop explaining yourself. If you say no, let it be no. If you make a decision, let it stand. You don't owe a TED Talk for every boundary you enforce. Confidence is quiet. Explanation is often insecurity dressed as politeness. Reclaim the power of absence. When you're constantly available, you're taken for granted. Disappear sometimes. Withdraw your presence. Let your absence speak louder than your presence ever did, not out of cruelty, but as a recalibration of value. Prioritize necessity over affection. Seek to be useful, not merely liked. Focus on cultivating skills, insights, and qualities that make you indispensable, not emotionally agreeable. Affection is fickle. Utility endures. Become comfortable in solitude. Spend time alone without distractions. Learn to befriend silence. The person who fears being alone will always trade their dignity for company. The one who finds peace in solitude becomes sovereign. Niccolò Machiavelli was not advocating for cruelty. He wasn't celebrating tyranny. He was acknowledging the brutal, often hidden structures that govern human behavior, and those structures remain. Modern society dresses them in softer language, wraps them in slogans about kindness and empathy, and those things have their place. But beneath it all, the same ancient impulses govern us. The one who can master certainty amidst chaos. The one who can detach from need. The one who can watch without flinching while others scramble for relevance. That person doesn't just survive. They dictate the terms, and in a world this uncertain, that is a form of quiet rebellion. A defiance not of kindness, but of manipulation. A refusal not of emotion, but of emotional enslavement. To reclaim your confidence is to reclaim your sovereignty. So now, I'll leave you with this. When was the last time you let yourself be fully alone? With your thoughts, without distractions, without someone else's voice in your ear? When did you last say no without explaining why? When did you last watch without reacting as someone tried to pull you into their drama? If your answer is never or not recently, then your power's been leaking and it's time to fix that. Drop your thoughts in the comments, not for validation, not for approval, but because sometimes a single moment of shared clarity changes everything. And if this resonated with you, subscribe, not because I asked, but because you recognize when something reaches the part of you most people pretend isn't there. Your confidence is already within you. It's just buried under habits, designed to keep you small, and it's time to take it back.